Hello and welcome to ALM for You, the channel that helps you understand SAP Cloud ALM better. Today we are going to discuss how to set up a project in SAP Cloud ALM. Before we proceed, a standard disclaimer that please make your own discretion while consuming this content, and some of the information may not be complete, accurate, or may have changed by the time you see this. What are the steps to set up a project? You select a template, you set up time boxes, and you do a bunch of other things, but I think it's much easier if we just go to the system directly. So I'm logged on to a tenant in which I have a project which is already set up, but let's start from absolute beginning. You can do that by clicking on this manage project, and you get to this screen, and let's create a project from scratch. So project is nothing but a container of information. So what does it contain? The information is basically your requirements, your test cases, the features which you are supposed to be deploying, and a bunch of other things, right? And we'll go into the details shortly, but to set up a project, you first of all need to give a name. So let's give the name as demo S/4HANA Cloud and just a date. And now let's look at this list. SAP Activate Task Template. So the tool comes preloaded with content from SAP Activate methodology. That makes your job as project lead much simpler, that you don't have to struggle to find instructions on what to do and also what is the right sequence in which you want to do things. So you can choose the right template which is applicable to you. If you are not sure, you can click on this and read more about the template. And if you still want more information, then actually you can click on one of this link which will take you to Roadmap Viewer. I'll do a separate video on Roadmap Viewer, so let's kind of not worry about that for now. And here I was selecting this template, and also let's not worry about integration scenarios. I'll do a separate video for this. So let's try to keep things absolutely simple. So I'm a project lead and I have just given a name. I can save it right now, or I can fill the time boxes and do that later. So now as soon as I save, I get a bunch of other tabs. So let's look at the time boxes. So what is time boxes? Time boxes is how do you want to manage from a timeline? What are the key events, dates, or timelines in your project? As an example, phases. And this is something that comes from SAP Activate methodology. So let's say you may have a date range in mind. Let's say the prepare phase may be starting right now, and the explore phase may be starting 1 month later, and you may not even know what other phases or the dates, so you can leave them blank for now. What's very important to understand is, even though we give you this methodology, it is not cast in stone. So you as an example can add your own phase. So let's say, before your deploy, let's say if you want to add a hypercare phase. So actually let's do that quickly. So I'll just give some dates. So let's pick a monthly schedule. So I have my realize, and then I have my deployment in January. And then maybe I'm a partner and I see, this methodology is great, but there should be a hypercare phase after deployment and before run. So you can really add your custom phase. So give it a date range, and let's say the phase name is hypercare, and let's say it starts from February, and you can save it. So you can see the methodology and tool is flexible. You get a different icon, custom phase, and the tool automatically sorts so that it's shown after deploy and before run. And the tool does that by looking at the dates. You can decide if you want to use sprints or not. We highly recommend you do. And again, I'll have a detailed video on how to use sprints, but for now, maybe let's have sprints only in the realize phase, which is more common. So I'll just create and you can create as many sprints as you want. Then there are some predefined milestones. You can use them or you can create your own milestones as well. Then let's quickly jump to teams. The tool gives you one team by default, but you can definitely pick other teams. You can create other teams. So how do you do that? So there is no create option here, but if you notice carefully, then there is another tab, teams, which you can use. So let's do that, and let me create a team, and let me call it the business experts team. Maybe I want my life to be easy, that I want to quickly know which people to invite when I do my business workshops, and here I can just have a different team for that. You can put as many people, and you notice that the moment I enter something, I was prompted for a user. So these users are already created in the IES tenant and they are already available for the project lead to use. So why do teams help? I mean, teams help in distribution of tasks. You can keep teams as you work operationally. The team comes with a set of predefined roles, but as part of your initial setup, if you want, let's say, a specific role such as Scrum Master, or in this case, I have Delivery Manager, you can create a custom role, and that way you can really mimic the style in which you specifically work in your day-to-day world. Okay. So we are done with the template selection, the time box. We also created at least one team and added a person to it. So let's see what are scopes. Scopes are a collection of processes. And let's see how does that scope creation looks like. So I click on the manage scopes and let me create my first scope. And how do you create your scopes is really depending on how do you work. As an example, you can create them via plants. And when you create a scope, then you have to select a content package. So we call that solution scenarios. So let's start with SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And I select a particular version, the latest one, and let me save it. So far I have just selected a content package, but I have not done the scoping, so I can start doing that. So I'm in my project, I'm in my scope, and now I look at the processes that are delivered by SAP. So this is also another advantage of SAP Cloud ALM, that it comes preloaded with content. And also, as you can see, there is country and localization information available. So just to keep things simple, I'll just add a bunch of processes and end the scoping. So that means the project lead at least has a charter in mind that this is the scope I want to eventually take live. You can change the scope, and you can use it for traceability. There are a lot of other things which we will cover in subsequent videos. Then let's get back to the project setup screen. And I think the last thing is deployment landscape. So the project has to use a landscape. And how do you get the landscape from here? So you get it by a selection of a deployment plan. And right now the deployment plan is not selected, but what is a deployment plan? How do you even get a deployment plan? So let's at least spend some time there. So now for a moment, wear the hat of a system administrator, and a system administrator has to do some system setup. This information is actually relevant for multiple projects in some cases. So the system administrator says, okay, I have my S/4HANA landscape. So let's call it S/4HANA system group. And you select a product. So as you can see, system group is restricted to a product line, but it can have multiple tenants. We call them systems. So that means each tenant is a system, and then a collection of systems is a system group. Point to note is the system group is restricted to one product line. Okay. And then you can start assigning systems. In this case, some of the roles are not maintained, so you don't get in the list. And in case you have multiple systems with the same role, then you can obviously assign them as well. So let's do that. And I'll keep things absolutely simple for this video, not to confuse you too much. So I have created one system group, and then I'll proceed by creating a deployment plan. And this deployment plan is actually relevant for multiple projects, but in this case, let's focus on just the project that we created. So this is your deployment plan, and the deployment plan gives you a planning window for making your deployments. So let's say you can have a strategy that every 3 months you ship things to production, or you do some kind of a major testing every 2 weeks. I mean, it really depends on how do you work at the end of the day. Do you have daily deliveries? Do you have sprint-based deliveries? How do you ship features to production? And here, what I'm talking about are mainly custom extensions that you may be doing using your BTP. So let's create a release, and let's say that you have a 3-month cycle in which the first deployment that you will do will be end of December, and then you already want to create a second release. You can change these things later. Okay, so that's also an advantage of SAP Cloud ALM, because things may change, and that's why it's allowed to take some decisions or change them very easily. Okay, so let's just create 2 releases and then assign the system group that we created. So I have kind of connected my system group to deployment plan. Let me do that. And now the last step that I have to do is I have to assign this deployment plan to my project to get the landscape. Okay, so let me go to the project, click on this deployment landscape tab, select my deployment plan, and there you see, you get the landscape automatically. So to summarize, you have to define your landscape first, put it into a deployment plan, and a deployment plan, when it is used in context of a project, is called deployment landscape. So that's how, because the intention is I want to use this in my project. So what is the advantage of doing this? The advantage is we have done kind of a basic infrastructure that gives a foundation for the team to work, for the work to get started, which will be explained in next videos. So if you like this video, then please leave a comment, give a thumbs up, and also share it with your network. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.